Hey y'all, today we're going to make a backyard mini foundry. Gavin obtained an interest in melting metals and stuff like that, and he went to King of Random's channel on YouTube and found where he was building a backyard mini foundry, and thought it was a pretty cool idea, so we thought we would try one ourselves. This is it right here. Basically, this refractory material, fire brick, so to speak, whatever you want to call it. It's just a mixture of plaster of Paris, water, and sand. So if you want the recipe on how to mix the plaster, the sand, and the water, go to King of Random's channel, type in mini backyard foundry, and he'll have the recipe for making that refractory material on that video. You're not going to find it here because I deleted his videos by accident when I was putting all of this together in the editing process, and I've thrown my paper away. I no longer have that recipe and I can't remember it offhand. So anyway, stay tuned and you will see how we built this thing, and now we're putting it to use. I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, go and dump that in there. Dump it in there easy so it doesn't all splash up. Drop your bucket in there and then tip it. There you go.
Right. This is only about one bucket of sand here.
Is that one bucket in there?
Yeah.
You need 1 3/4 buckets of sand.
Alright, pause. I gotta go get my sand. Ready? We gotta be quick.
And once you pour the water into the mixture, you've only got about 15 minutes.
Before it all hardens up.
Was it 1 3/4 buckets or 1 1/2? And you want to mix this up until it's all smooth consistency and all the lumps are out of it.
Alright, so now we have our mix ready. We have it all stirred up. Now we only have so much time to get this in here and form the center. Now we do this slow enough so it doesn't splash everywhere.
Try not to hit the camera.
So now, to form the hole in the middle, I'm filling this bucket up with water. So we're gonna push it down here. So now the mix is already
Let's get it
thickening
centered
up, so we'll push it up and down a few times.
Try to get this bucket as centered as possible so you'll have even insulation all the way around.
All the way down.
Alright, so when we put the bucket down into the plaster, the pressure of the plaster wanted to shove the bucket back up out, this plastic bucket. It wanted to shove it back up out. The water wasn't heavy enough to hold it into place, so I just dropped a couple weights down in there and it's holding it. I still had to help it out, hold the bucket for about 3 or 4 minutes, but the plaster is starting to set up enough that it's holding that bucket in place. So we're going to give that about an hour or so to set up. In the meantime, we'll clean up the outside of this bucket here.
Also, if you take a damp rag,
or sponge,
whatever, if you wipe that down, it'll clean up pretty good.
Clean that up too. Make it look nice and somewhat professional. Okay, this plaster's had about 45 minutes to an hour to set up. So now we're going to get a pair of pliers and see if we can pull this bucket out of here. This bucket won't bend. The bucket's too stiff. tell you what, this bucket, this plastic bucket, was a pain in the butt to get out of here. If you watch King of Random's video, he used like a, I don't know, like a sandbox bucket. He grabbed a hold of it with his pliers, was able to twist it, and it pulled out pretty easy. This bucket is, I don't know, it's one of those little white buckets that we got at a local produce. You go out and you pick your own strawberries, and they have the buckets out there in the strawberry patch for you to use.
That's what it is?
And that thing was very rigid, and you couldn't hardly twist it at all to get it to come up out of there. So I had to cut pieces off of it, got the Bernzomatic blowtorch, had to heat the bucket up, soften it up so I could twist it and bend it. It was a pain in the butt. I bet you I worked on this bucket for a good 25 minutes trying to get it out of here.
Show me your finger.
But anyway, that is the result we were wanting. So that's going to be our furnace.
Squishy.
Now what we got to do, now comes in the 1-inch pipe. We have to use a 1 3 inch
It's so warm.
hole saw to cut a vent hole in here so that the pipe will go through. And you guys will see how that's going to work here in a minute. So let's get to cutting.
30-degree angle. Oh, we could peel that off.
I'll tell you when you're
Ankle
through.
down. You're going through.
Keep going?
Yeah.
You're done. You're done.
Ooh, woohoo!
Alright, we've got the furnace done. We got our vent hole cut in. Now we're going to let that plaster set up for about a day or two. Then we should be ready to go. So now let's go work on the lid.
So how are we going to do this?
Now we're ready to make our lid. So we're going to use this 5-gallon bucket as the mold for our lid. When we pour the plaster in there, it's going to set up and get hard. So I lined this bucket with wax paper so that it will be easier to remove. I also have a 1-quart paint can that I lined with wax paper, and that is going to be the mold to create our vent hole. So the recipe for the plaster for the lid is going to be half of what we used to make the lining for the Foundry. Okay, one little trick I forgot to mention. We went and got some coarse steel wool. In this case, this is number 3. We put it inside the bucket here, and if you can see it down in there, we just spread it apart, a couple strands, spread it apart, and stuck it down in there. That's going to act as reinforcement, kind of like rebar in concrete. After watching some of King of Random's videos, people were having issues with their lids breaking down only after 1 or 2 firings. So this steel wool, according to his recommendations, should make that lid last about 10 times longer. So we'll see how it works. Alright, again, the recipe for the lid is half of that we used for the Foundry lining. So we got 10 cups of sand.
All of it?
Yep.
You can
Dump
rub
it all
that
in there.
one
We need 10 cups of plaster and 7 quarts of water. Alright, so these U-bolts are going to be our handles. I'm going to drop them in. They'll stand up.
Probably.
You might have to support them.
Steel wool's helping a little bit. Here's the lid. If it looks like it's been used, that's because it has. So like I did before, I lost the footage of us when we actually made the lid. So it's been used a few times. But I've recorded this video of the lid and inserted it here in the video. And that goes on top of the furnace, like so. You guys will see it in action coming up.
I am a call. I'll be right back.
Let's see what you got.
Lead.
Lead bullets.
Alright,
Sorry
so
about
we're gonna pour the lead into this steel loaf mold. Do it back. Is that it? Alrighty. And I'll go get some water. And then we can put the new charcoal in there and new house too. And we'll do grass and stuff.
Alright.
Feel it.
It's not going to do it now because it's collapsing all that.
Y'all get it out, let me know.
Well, there's the lead. We poured it into this bread pan. I don't know if we let it cool down too long or what, but we could not get it knocked out of here. So we pretty much destroyed this pan trying to get it out. So, I don't know. We'll get something figured out. Maybe we'll just stick this back in the crucible and melt the lead out of it. Alright, so the brass orifices didn't work very well last night. So we went to the fishing game and we got some shells. We got brass, aluminum, more aluminum than we do brass. Obviously, there are a bunch of those laying around.
There's a few nickel plated.
We'll separate them later on. And we picked up some cans. See what that'll do. So, I think we're going to start off with the cans. Got the furnace fired up. Drop a can in there. The furnace has only been going for about 10 or 15 minutes, so it may take a while for that to get melted down. We'll check back in. Alright, it's been about 7 or 8 minutes and that first can is melting down. I don't know if you can see through the flames, but that can is shriveling up. Go ahead and drop one more in there.
Oh, what's that?
Just the paint burning off of it.
I love it when it does that. Adding charcoal.
Here, once you turn that drawer off. This is what happens when you add more charcoal. You are.
You sure?
Yep. Alright, so you can see some of the liquid down in there. You can see that or not. Got some slag on top we got to pull off, and then we're going to pour these into a little mini muffin pan and see if we can make some aluminum muffins.
I gotta do this quick here because it looks like it's wanting to harden up a little bit, so, ooh. Alrighty. So, okay. Here we go. Keep on. Oh. Yay! We only got one. Alrighty, here's.
Okay, so here's our little aluminum biscuit.
Alrighty. Oh. Ready? It's gonna melt the bottom out of my bucket. Yeah, it stuck to the bucket.
Did it?
Ooh.
I kind of wondered, so. And there is an aluminum muffin. 17 cans.
Yep.
Made that one little muffin.
And some slag. Don't forget about that.
Alright, well, there's a little aluminum muffin. So, making these little muffins, it's a lot easier to store so that you can use this aluminum for future use. It's a lot easier to store this muffin than it is to store 17 aluminum cans. So, there you go. Next time we fire this thing up,
It's gonna be
we'll
brass
use the
finishes.
brass and those aluminum cartridges. So anyway, there you have it. That's the mini backyard furnace. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.